Hi, Steve. So today we're with Steve Swindell, current CEO of Xodus.
Not quite.
Not quite.
Exiting CEO. So
There you go.
yeah, I'm now the advisor to the CEO for Xodus, but have been for the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. So what was the decision or how is it now seeing someone else in that role?
That's a really interesting question. This last month has been quite interesting because having Xodus has been my life for 20 years, and you know everything about it, you know everyone in it, and handing over to someone has an advantage of I don't have the stress of the decision making and responsibility, but it's a weird feeling doing that. So it has been a bit strange, but I'm getting used to it slowly.
And is it something, even though you're still in the business at the moment, but is it something you miss?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I think I will miss it eventually, but right now I'm just trying to process the change, if you like.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so we'll come back to Xodus. So where did you kick off your career?
Yeah, I as you can maybe tell from my accent, I grew up in South Africa. I did chemical engineering at University of Natal in Durban, and in South Africa, to get to university, I had a bursary from somebody, and so I got a bursary from the Iron and Steel Corporation in South Africa, which then means you have to go and work for them for a number of years afterwards. So my first job was in an iron and steel business.
Was that like an apprenticeship?
No, not so much. Yeah, we called it engineering training. So I had a chemical engineering degree.
Okay.
But then you go into a job where you go and prove yourself as an engineer. So there's engineering training, and I worked on a steel plant, which was great fun. But after 18 months, 2 years, I thought, no, this isn't. I wanted to do chemical engineering, and making steel wasn't chemical engineering. I didn't think. With hindsight, I maybe would change my mind, but when I was young and opinionated, I thought, no, I want to do chemical engineering. So I went to a company which made rubber from coal.
Okay.
Which is a really complex chemical process. No one does it because you can get rubber from trees, obviously. But in South Africa, there were sanctions in place, and no one was allowed to send rubber to South Africa. So South Africa had to make their own rubber from first principles.
When was this?
This was in the 80s.
Okay.
So I ended up working for this company making rubber from coal. Fantastic for a chemical engineer. But around about 1990, sanctions ended because the transition in South Africa was changing. Apartheid was ending.
Was that business ended?
And they said, well, we can get rubber from trees now again. So let's
scrap this.
Let's scrap this. And so they said, right, here's a redundancy package, away you go. And a mate of mine and his wife and I decided, well, let's go and travel around Europe first before we come back and look for a job.
So you were intending on back to Cape Town?
Yes, or South Africa, yeah. So we just traveled around mainly the UK, ran out of money quite quickly, and then thought I need to get a job to supplement things. And so I looked for a job. And at that point, the only place I could find one was in Aberdeen. I thought I'd get a job in London somewhere. But in 1990, they said, oh no, Aberdeen's the place to go. So I applied and got a job with a company called Genesis.
Yep.
Genesis Oil and Gas Consultants in 1990. So arrived here not knowing what Aberdeen was or where it was even in October 90. And I've been here ever since.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how I got into the oil industry.
Yeah. We interviewed your co-founder, Colin, a while back. So you obviously met him at Genesis.
Yes. So he joined Genesis in about 95 or something, a few years after me. So that's where we met. Yeah.
Yeah. And these are, on the face of it, chalk and cheese.
Yeah. You could say that. I think everybody has noticed that we're completely different characters.
Yeah.
But somehow we just have
it works.
Somehow it works. You know, it's an unusual combination. Colin is, you know what Colin's like.
Yep.
We won't describe him.
Yeah. No.
He's done his bit on his podcast. But I'm more, not an extrovert. Probably not the classic entrepreneur character. Probably more measured and consider things
more planned.
not organized,
Yeah.
but probably a little bit more planned. So I was the one who basically made sure everything worked.
Yeah.
Colin came up with all the good ideas.
Okay.
And I had to
Deliver them.
This is how we're going to do it.
Make them actually.
And
make them real.
And keep him right from time to time.
Yeah. Well, he mentioned some things when we spoke to him. But so you went to Genesis, and then from there was Exodus.
Yeah. I was with Genesis for 15 years.
A long time.
So it was a long time. And then that took us to 2005. And it's at that time that Colin and I and a couple of others decided we could do this ourselves and do it a bit better. Slightly naively, but...
What convinced you that was the way to go? For you personally, I know we spoke to Colin, but for you?
Yeah, for me personally, I think it was the opportunity, the unknown, the thought that yes, we could do this ourselves, and we had ideas of how we could do it better, and we just wanted to try it. And I think we didn't really look at all the difficult parts that would come. We just looked at all the opportunity. I thought, yeah, let's just give it a go. And I think it was maybe, what age would I have been back then? Just over 40. I thought, well, now's the time to do it. If I don't do it now, I'll regret it. Yeah. And if it goes wrong, I knew I had a career to fall back on.
Yeah.
So just went for it.
Yeah. And again, using Colin, when we spoke to Colin, he talked about actually it was just growth the whole time, and maybe you were in the back doing the planning and everything else, but for Colin it was very much we were skyrocketing. What was the reality for you and your role and what you did? How did you see the initial startup and build of that business?
Yeah, I mean, it was growth, and it was almost by necessity though, because I think we had borrowed money up front. We got an investor, an angel. I don't know what you call them, a venture capitalist or an angel investor.
Yeah.
Who we owe a lot to, actually, Brian Meldrum, from John Laurie Group.
Yeah.
So we kind of had to get to a certain size in order to pay back and just get to profitable quite quickly. So growth was an imperative. Even though we wanted to grow, we had to get to 40 or 60 within that first year. Otherwise, we would have blown it.
Yeah.
So we grew out of necessity to start with, but then realized if there's something in this, there's something really exciting going on here, and we just started taking all the opportunities. So yeah, I guess it was my role in that was more about just getting work in, because when you're starting a consultancy,
I guess
can have all the
everybody's role at the time, was it? Was it just get more work in the door?
And it was, you just had to get work in. Everybody was doing work for clients, and
so were you basically sales?
No,
BD?
I suppose I was. Everybody in Exodus was a salesperson at that time, but my speciality was field development studies, and people at that time knew me in time for that. So I was out there.
Work for your network.
Yeah, through the network, and even I remember the first big job we got. I actually went and sat in Chevron's offices for 6 months and during the day I did the work there, managed the project from there, and in the evenings was helping with Exodus stuff.
Yeah. So it was long days then at the start.
It was in those days. Yeah. It was.
And was there ever a point where at the start, you're at Genesis, you guys jumped to Exodus, kicked that off, but was there a point where you thought, fucking hell, this might not work? Or was it very, very sunny for the start?
Yeah, we had a few periods. I think the first 3 years, it went up and up and up. And I think it was 2008, there was a little bit of a dip, and we suddenly had to look at it and think, oh, we're not making money as we thought we would. What do we have to change?
Yeah.
And we had to go and put the rates up and do all sorts of things. So there were a few moments. The other one was cash flow. Yeah. Everybody talked about cash flow, and you can tell people about it, but you cannot you don't learn about it until you experience it. And there was 1 year after the end of the second year, we were doing so well, we thought we were brilliant. We got to December, party time happened, Christmas parties. Came in January, and got to like the middle of January, and the bank phoned up and said, there's not enough money to pay for salaries this month. We're like, what? How come? Turns out we forgot to send the invoices out before Christmas.
Okay, yeah. So you've been caught short.
Yeah. So basically, it was like, because everybody was so busy partying, we didn't really do the invoices properly. And so we had to go cap in hand to the bank that January and say, please help us out. They gave us an overdraft, and then we paid invoices. But that experience, those 2 weeks was suddenly
A reality shock.
Well, you could be making money on paper, but without
How much
cash.
money's in the bank?
Yeah. So that was a real learning point for me and for Colin. So yeah, there were some challenging times in it, but most of it was just exciting growth.
Yeah, and it's 20 years now.
Yeah.
So you're stepping back after 20 years.
Yeah.
That's a massive part of your life.
It has been, and this stepping back process is a bit strange, but I am genuinely looking forward to getting a bit of a break, because some of it's been stressful. The last,
what's been the biggest challenges over 2 decades?
Oh, 2 decades. The biggest challenges. Oh, where to start? I'll give you a couple of them. Shall I? I think there's one under the theme of private equity. We had private equity invest in Xodus, and I think, knowing what I know now, I might have approached that whole process a bit differently.
In what way?
I don't want to knock private equity, because they had to play a very important role in
the growth,
in growing a business.
Yeah.
But when you get into it, I don't think you understand. I never really understood how they made money.
Yeah.
But I really understood how they made money when we did our first sale to Xodus.
Just explain that.
Well, a private equity, generally, when they put money into a business, they want a return on it.
Yeah.
And the way they make the return is by buying some shares, and they hope to sell those shares for them. But they make most of their money on loan notes. So they'll put a loan into the company and say, we want to pay that back, and they'll have a 2 or 3 times coupon on that.
Yeah.
So they'll say, when the sale happens, let's say they put 2 million in, for argument's sake, the 3 times coupon means they're going to get 6 million straight away. So when you sell,
a lot of it disappears.
Immediately 6 goes straight to pay the loan.
Yeah.
And now you've got whatever's left, and that then gets split up to shares.
Yeah.
And so you look at and you think, wow, we've sold this company for this amazing amount of money, and I'm only getting this amount.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Then you start to unravel it. So I don't want to sound negative when a private equity listens to this, but it's just one of the learning points for me.
At that point, as a growing business, and maybe no understanding how it actually works, you just get carried away with the fact that you're getting the 2 million.
Yes, well, because at that time you're excited about growth, and you're fully confident that you've told the private equity company, we're going to turn your money into profit, and we're going to make some money out of it as well. Everybody's happy. Naively, though, perhaps our eyes were never on a sale when we started. We just thought we were going to do Xodus forever.
Yeah.
But eventually, a private equity company takes you down a sale route, because that's their job.
That's where they make their money.
Yeah, and so you get taken down that road, and we were taken down that road as well. I'm not upset with it, because I got some money out of it, so great. But with hindsight, might have structured things slightly differently.
Yeah. Okay, so a bit naivety.
Yeah. But there's lots of that that's been part of our journey. So that was one of the challenges. The other one was then when we sold to a Japanese company, Chiyoda.
Yeah.
They were very good to us, but the challenge was that just after they sold, the downturn of 2014, 2015 happened.
Yeah.
And all our promises were difficult to deliver.
Yeah.
So that was a challenging time. With hindsight, there's a couple of things we would have done differently, but hindsight's too easy.
And what about, like, from a leadership perspective? You've obviously had, I don't know how many people you've employed through that 2 decades. And that would have been different at different times as you move from growth into sort of leveling off and then into renewables as you guys have pushed. So how have you, as the leader of the business, how have you decided to lead that business, and what have you looked for in people?
I think my leadership style has been more about making sure people are looked after, rather than a sort of telling people what to do kind of thing. So what I look for is talent, people who are technically talented, but also can hold themselves in front of a client, and also when a client listens to them, they'll be thinking, I want this guy's advice or this person's advice. And so for me, it was all about the people, and I probably spent a lot of time making sure that people were in the right place. But it's tough. It's not as easy as you think.
No.
So that's one of the challenges of a consultancy business, I suppose.
And what about internationalizing, taking that business from Aberdeen and Xodus and lots of parts of the world? From an OGV perspective, you guys have been on our stand at ADIPEC. We've bumped into you guys in Australia and different things. So you obviously a global business now in that 20 years.
Yeah, I think two things happened there. One was it was clear that there were markets outside of the North Sea that were huge, and lots of money was being spent. And we thought, well, we need to access some of that. There are growth opportunities there. The growth excitement came along with that. Australia happened more because we had people that kept moving out to Australia, but still wanted to be part of Xodus. So
trying to keep them.
Yeah, we try to keep them. So that was an element. But what we realized, the story of Xodus and what we were doing was also applicable in that market. It made sense, and so it was a good stamping ground to start. So Australia was very successful. It's probably our first venture. Then we went to other parts, Norway, the US, Nigeria, and also we went to Netherlands, more from a specific opportunity to pick up some subsurface capability. So sometimes it was about capabilities. Sometimes it was about the market.
And is there any of those markets you went to that didn't work or had their own big challenges?
The Middle East was a challenge. We went there in a big way, and at one point we had 100 people in the Middle East.
Wow.
And at the time, Colin was based out there and leading that. But when the downturn happened, we almost went back to a handful of people, because the work just stopped, and it was very difficult to compete with the large entities out there, Worley, Petrofac, and those types. So the consultancy model wasn't as safe or as sought after back then. So the Middle East was a challenge. We're still there. We still have a presence there, and we see actually that's where the big opportunity now is. That's where all the growth is happening. So we're probably going to be increasing in size in the Middle East now.
So how many staff is there, do you know?
We have between 20 and 30 in the Middle East now.
And is that in a specific region of the Middle East, or
they're spread around actually? Some in Qatar. We've got some good clients there. Some in Abu Dhabi and some in Dubai.
And for companies from Aberdeen or the UK, so obviously we have a tough market here in the North Sea. Everybody's looking for opportunities to internationalize. So what would be your advice to an Aberdeen tooling company or supply company who are thinking, okay, we need to get out of the North Sea, we need to get more work abroad, and they were looking at the Middle East? What would be what would be your advice to a company internationalizing their business?
Yeah, I'd say it's important to do it. I think if you want to, there's a lot of work still to be done in the North Sea. I do believe that. But at the same time, it's also clear that it's a declining sector. So if you want to be growing and expanding, I think you do have to look at international markets. I think it's a necessity. And the way to do it is you have to do it carefully and considered. You can't just jump into it. It does take time, and you need to be prepared to invest. It'll take a year or two of planning and checking it out, and allocate some of your profits to investing in a new area. But I think it's
a tough thing for a small company looking to do that, isn't it? Because you're taking money away from day to day, trying to keep the lights on and trying to look ahead.
Yeah, and that's quite often the point at which you then ask for private equity or other people to come in, and you say, I need £1 million to go and do this because I haven't got it in my bank account. That's normally the point at which
you can see the opportunity.
You go down that road. So, I guess you need an element of confidence, but I don't know. It depends on the size of the company. I think it is possible to run a small company in the North Sea and just focus on that.
Yeah.
If you're focusing on the things that are being done here, which is integrity management, decommissioning, just
There is a market.
there is a market here, and it'll be here for another 30 or 40 years, no doubt. But it'll inherently be limited.
Yeah.
So if you want to
Continue to shrink.
yeah, if you want to grow, you do have to look elsewhere.
Yeah.
And right now, Middle East is the place to go.
And on the culture side, you guys had X Games and things like that. What kind of culture do you try and create, and how easy is it to maintain that culture?
Yeah, culture is the product of values and behaviors.
Yeah.
So
It comes through the business.
Comes through
being alive, really.
your values. You have to have a set of values, and then the way you behave with those values. So it's not something you can write down. We created a bunch of cool things in Xodus in the early days, which somehow have maintained and they've just kept going. Xodus Games was a bit of a one-off. It was a really special occasion, which was probably never going to be repeated. But it's the smaller things underneath it which create the culture.
You guys have had quite a few events here in our bar.
Times have changed. The culture is not necessarily about drinking. Because a lot in the early days, culture was around, drinking in bars, whereas now it's about socializing and bringing people together. Sometimes you still can go to bars and use bars as a place for that, but we think more broadly. But the culture of socializing and making sure people are enjoying working with their colleagues is a really important part of it. Somehow we've managed to create that. It wasn't by luck. Colin had a big influence on that, and I've tried to influence that as well by making sure people feel included. So a lot of effort making sure that you create things that are inclusive. Because times have changed.
Yeah. You mentioned Colin. So when the two of you started the company up and ran the company, obviously Colin moved off. Was there a difference there after Colin moved on, or how did it run the same, or did you have merry responsibility at that point then?
Yeah.
Did you lose your right hand?
I did actually. That was one of the biggest things. It's been over 10 years now since he left. Or it has been roughly 10 years since he left. And that was the one thing I did feel. We were partners in crime. I didn't have someone to bounce things off. And so unless you find that person again, you then have to find that team to work with.
Because you're not going to get that person again, because you've done that for the start. Wasn't even that company, you were at another company before that company.
And so that's what I had to do in the last 5 years, is try and build that team that you work with. And that's been that was easier said than done. It's not as simple as that. And I had to learn that because that wasn't my natural proclivity, if you like.
So you had to cover two jobs.
But initially there was someone else was put in charge of Xodus. The chairman at the time came in. So I didn't take over from Colin straight away. I sort of filled the COO role. And then eventually took on the sort of MD role in about 2019, just as Subsea 7 invested. And
is that something you think you should have done before, or were you quite happy in that COO role previously?
I think I was quite happy in that COO role. And it worked well when you've got the right CEO. But there were times afterwards where I realized that if you're not working for the right CEO, then it makes it harder.
And what would be your legacy at 20 years at Xodus?
Oh, that's a good question. What would be my legacy? I'd just like to think that we've created something that's going to survive, and that we've created something that's really changed the way we do certain things in the industry, but also created opportunity for loads of people. I checked the numbers the other day just for fun, and 2,700 people have had Xodus email addresses in 20 years. So that, that for me is we've affected 2,700 lives somehow. Whether for 5 minutes or for 15 years, I don't know, but we've affected those lives.
You've been involved in it.
Yeah, been involved in it, and they're part of that Xodus community. So that's the legacy.
Yeah.
I think. I hope it's a legacy that will then run on. Obviously, it's now wholly owned by Subsea 7, but that brand and that legacy can still continue.
Yeah. And it's always remained its own brand. It's never been
Yeah.
swallowed up. So
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool to set something up and 20 years later still going and still have so many people working for it.
Yeah.
And growing. What about during that time then? What's been the biggest challenge for you personally during that 20 years?
I think two parts. I guess Xodus became a place where I had all my friends and all my social network as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes having to take business decisions with friends is a tough place to be.
Yeah.
So that's one of the challenges I think. So for me, personally, that was a big learning curve or a challenge.
That'll be a stress at times as well if you know you're going to make a decision that's not good for a friend, but you've got to make that decision for the business. That
yes,
for you personally, it must be a bit of a mental headache.
Yeah, and the other thing personally for me is that I'm people will say I sit on the fence. I'm a procrastinator. I like to make people happy, and so I tended to, in the role of CEO, you have to make decisions and take them quickly, and I had to learn how to do that. It didn't come naturally.
Yeah.
I worried too much about the impact it would have on all these different people and how do I keep everybody happy. So it took me a while to realize it's impossible to keep everybody happy.
So how has that changed over time? You've had to be more snap judgment?
Not snap judgment, but be prepared to take decisions without there and realize that that you're taking decisions for the business rather than for people, and that still to this day that's a difficult conundrum for me.
Yeah, fair. Right. And what's the plan then? Moving away from 20 years at Xodus, where are you going? Are you going to the beach or? No, not the beach. I think I definitely want to take a couple of months off where I can just relax a bit and de-stress, because on the family side of things, it's been a stressful couple of years. As well. So the combination of the stress of running a company and having, the family stress of dealing with foster kids has taken its toll. So I'm looking forward to a break, but I'm not ready to completely stop working. Yeah. So initially, I'm going to be advising Xodus in the background throughout 2026 in a small way, and I'll take time to look for other opportunities, but they're not defined yet. I think I probably might consider some non-exec roles. I might consider something else, other things that I really enjoy doing. So it's just a wait and see at the moment.
Yeah, wait and see. I enjoy seeing people develop. One of the most fun times I've had in my career is sometimes been running. Tom Baxter and I, back in Genesis days, we ran this upstream process engineering course for BP.
Okay.
We ran it multiple times, but some of the best 2-week periods ever where you're able to impart your knowledge and just see people learn, listen to you, and you can tell stories and share your experience. I really get a kick out of that. So who knows, you might see me doing some of that in the future. I don't think I'll ever be a lecturer in a university, but real life experience and passing on my
knowledge,
sharing the knowledge, that's something I'd be prepared to do.
Right. And then, so who is Steve outside of work, away from Xodus? You mentioned in some of our quiz questions type thing that you play piano. So
yeah,
what else do you get up to? Are you any good at the piano?
I'm not that good. I enjoy playing the piano. I learned when I was a teenager, but I never took enough lessons to be good at it. So I'm good enough to play for myself, but not for others.
Okay.
So I enjoy doing that when I get the chance. Photography, I really enjoy photography. So that's one of my secret sort of hopes, is that I'll get a bit more time to be able to go into the mountains and landscape photography.
Okay.
This is what I really enjoy.
Plenty here.
So I'm going to spend some time doing that. yeah, and then supporting the family. We've got 3 grown-up boys who have, you know.
So you mentioned foster kids. So you've got 3 boys of your own.
Yep.
And then you've got a couple of foster kids or a foster kid.
We've got a foster daughter at the moment, and yeah, she's in 2nd year of school and be moving on. So committed to seeing her through school. So yeah, there'll be a fair bit of work to do on the family side as well.
From that point of view, how do you get into foster care? Or what as a family? Why did you decide?
Interesting story. I think well, a lot of it's down to my wife's passion. She has always been in childcare before we had kids, but I guess once our kids grew up and we had a house with lots of space in it, the concern was there are lots of siblings out there that get separated when they get placed into care, and we thought, well, we could help in a small way by keeping siblings together. And so she asked if I was up for it, and I said, yep, I'm happy to support it. So we went and got assessed and trained up, and then got a call one day saying there's a couple of kids here who have lost their parents and they need help.
Lost as in passed away?
Passed away, yeah. Well, one was in the process of passing away. Wow. So we had to see them through that phase.
What age were these kids?
They were 5 and 8 at the time, and there's we're still connected with them now. So it's been quite a journey, but there've been some challenging times. It consumes. I think the interesting thing about fostering is that it's going to be hard almost by definition.
Yeah.
And so you accept that, but nothing quite prepares you for the reality of how much it takes out of you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my wife's done most of the heavy lifting, but it does impact you, especially when you're doing a sort of a stressful job.
Yeah.
A job of a CEO.
And your job obviously entails a lot of traveling as well with a company that's global. So that must be tough as well from a work life, but obviously for a personal life as well, and for your wife and for those kids.
Yeah, that did prove some challenging at times. Can't go into too much detail, but yeah, that it made me change the way I traveled. If I was traveling, I would try and do things in short trips.
More compact.
Yeah, and go to Australia for 2 days and come back, and people will think, "What are you doing that for?" And I said, "Well, I need to get back home."
There is a reason. Yeah, there's a reason. I don't want to be doing that, but I've got no choice.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, just if you look back at your career, is there anything you would have changed, or is it all the way it was supposed to be?
No, there's nothing I would have changed. I think it wasn't planned. The move from South Africa to here wasn't a planned move.
Yeah.
My mum was probably still expecting me to come back home. I never did. Got married, met my wife here, got married. Aberdeen became home. Loved working at Genesis. The move to Xodus was a real leap of faith.
Yeah.
Starting it up. So many things that we look back on, we might have taken a different decision, but actually, there's nothing that would have changed.
No.
I think it's probably worked out as it was meant to be. Yeah, you can think there's lots of sliding door moments of where we almost ended up in Perth, and if you'd taken a job in Perth in 1996, probably Xodus would never have happened.
Yeah,
you could argue.
Different world.
Yeah. So
and just go we never really we spoke about your first job, but you mentioned obviously growing up in South Africa and tough times at that time. How was life in South Africa?
It was. So I was growing up in the late 70s, early 80s. Apartheid was at its height.
Yeah.
And the unrest was at its height as well. The country was starting to get really sort of torn apart by the violence.
Yeah.
So it was a tough time to be there.
Where were you based? Where did you
I was
go?
based in Natal, Durban, and Newcastle, with the main university in Durban, but also when my first job was in a place called Newcastle in northern Natal. So it was a tough place, and we had to go to army in those days as well. Conscription was a thing.
Okay.
And
was that like 2 years service?
2 years service. I didn't really enjoy that because at that stage the army was being used to suppress violence in the townships, and I thought that's wrong, and that's not what an army is supposed to be used for. So there was a lot of tension between a university.
And that was mandatory. Every boy or
every white boy had to do 2 years service.
Wow.
So yeah, whether you liked it or not, and people objected to it as well. And if you objected, you went to jail instead.
So you had no choice, really.
So I chose to just do it, even though I didn't agree with what.
Just get past it.
Yeah, just get past it.
So you done that before or after university?
After university.
After university.
So I'd gone to university, classic, got liberalized in a university environment, and then get told you got to go and serve army in this and work for a country, enforce this thing that you don't like. So it was an interesting time.
Yeah.
So maybe it made it harder for myself than I needed to be, but I actually had a lot of fun doing it. Met lots of great people. It taught me a lot. But yeah, South Africa was an interesting time to be in South Africa.
Yeah.
So when we left, it was just to go on holiday. It wasn't to leave because I was fed up with it.
Yeah. I mean, you came to the UK from there. Was this like a holiday here, or I know your own holiday, but did it feel like actually life is so much easier here, or?
I don't think I noticed. Yes, in a way. What I do remember was that what I found fascinating when I came over here was that listening to the TV and listening to the debates was that people were talking about the health service, and they were talking about, I was thinking, wow, people are actually debating the health service and whether you're getting care or not. In South Africa, the only issue was one man, one vote. When is that going to happen? Black versus white. It was just the only thing that dominated everything. So there was no space in the political spectrum for actually talking about services and improvements of running the country better. When I got here, I thought, oh wow, this is how countries are supposed to work. Governments actually spend time looking at the services they provide, and that was an eye opener. Soon realized that that's also doesn't work very well either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
So just a couple of things. So obviously we're going through some challenges here in the North Sea at the moment. So what's your thoughts on the North Sea in general right now and over the next sort of 5-10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's still a lot to do in the North Sea. Even if nothing else happens now, there is still a lot of decommissioning and integrity management work that's got to be done to maintain what we have.
Yeah.
So there's still work to be done. I am hopeful though that the government's going to make a few changes in the budget and actually allow a bit more exploration around infrastructure potentially. We're hearing noises, but no one knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think I'd be disappointed if there's no change, because if there is no change from the current thing, I think that would be slightly depressing and a bit of
a negative effect.
A bit negative effect. But on the plus side, if the government does tweak a few rules, whether they'll drop the EPL is another story. But even if they don't drop that, but just allow additional infrastructure-led exploration, that would create a mini boost and encourage companies to keep going. So there are companies who have sort of said, okay, well, let's assume nothing's going to happen. Let's just get on and do stuff.
Yeah.
And they're making money. There are companies in the North Sea right now, I won't name them, but probably easy to guess, but they're making $2 billion a year of cash every year. I mean, that's not bad business.
They're surviving.
Yeah. There's money to be made here. So,
and what about the renewable market? Because obviously, from an Xodus perspective, you guys heavily invested in the renewable side for the last, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah. So what's your view on the renewable market now after investing and obviously recruiting and everything else, building up to support that market? What's your thoughts on it at the moment?
Yeah, it's been challenging. I think as a consultancy, you have to rely on the clients to give you work. And if no one's actually delivering the projects, then you have to sort of adapt to that. So we've had to do that. You can't get away from the fact that market is going to be there in the future. It's just when is that wave going to come? And so the trick is holding enough capability to be ready for when things do kick in.
When you get a phone call.
Yeah, to be able to do that. So I think it would be highly irresponsible to turn around and walk away from that and say, not going to do it at all. So we have to maintain that capability because it is going to come. Whether Aberdeen's going to be the center of gravity for offshore wind is debatable, though.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of talent here in Aberdeen, but
do you think there's a better fit? Do you think northeast of England, or
so much of it is dominated by the construction of the foundations for these wind turbines.
Yeah.
So I think that center of gravity will go towards where those construction sites
are.
So maybe in Neg or yards like that start to become the center of gravity, I think. But the things that aren't location specific is the environmental impact assessment stuff that we do a lot of at Xodus. That can be done from anywhere, and there should be a lot of that work going on. And understanding of marine environments and seabed leasing and all that. You can do that from anywhere. So there is, idea is to try and use the talent that we've got in the Northeast and adapt it to the renewables market.
But that'll be its own challenges.
Yeah. It's difficult to predict when that wave's going to come.
Yeah. Okay, Steve, thank you very much. Just to finish off, we're in a bar. What's your drink of choice?
Drink of choice. I love a really good red wine, a South African Pinotage, but also I've become accustomed to a nice IPA as well.
Cool. Steve, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.